All right, let's get into this. We're about to crack open a manuscript that's nearly 1,000 years old. It's basically a guide that promises to teach you how to read the stars, a place where really rigorous science was used to try and map out human destiny. This isn't just some dusty old book. It's a peek into a completely different way of seeing the entire universe.
And here it is, the Book of Instruction in the Elements of the Art of Astrology, written all the way back in 1029. I mean, when you look at this, you just have to wonder, right? What did you actually have to know to become an astrologer a millennium ago? What kind of secrets did they think were hiding up there in the night sky?
Now, what's so fascinating about this thing is who it was written for. You'd think a work this complex, this detailed, would be for a king or maybe another top scholar, but nope. The author says right there it was an aid memoir, basically a cheat sheet for a woman named Rayhana. Why? Simply because she was curious and asked him to make it. A genius creating an entire guide to the cosmos just for someone who wanted to learn.
So, who was this brilliant mind behind the manual? And what exactly was he trying to do when he put it all together? Let's get into the story of the author and what he was trying to achieve. Okay, so the author was a man named Al-Biruni. And we need to be super clear about this. This guy wasn't some kind of mystic or fortune teller. He was a Persian polymath, one of the greatest scientific minds of the Islamic Golden Age. He made huge contributions to physics, math, astronomy, you name it. For a mind like his, astrology wasn't superstition. It was the ultimate application of all that other science.
And this is the part you really have to wrap your head around. For hundreds of years after it was written, this wasn't treated like a book of magic. It was actually used as a primer of science. It was a textbook, a foundational guide for anyone who wanted to understand how the world worked. You see, the hard line we draw today between science and pseudoscience, well, it just didn't really exist for them. It was all part of the same big quest for knowledge.
So, how did you get to be an astrologer back then? It wasn't about having a special gift or just, feeling the vibes. It was a climb. Al-Biruni saw astrology as the final peak of a mountain of knowledge. It was something you could only get to after you had mastered a whole lot of other stuff first.
And this is his ladder of knowledge. First up, you had to master geometry, the language of space. Then, you needed arithmetic and the science of numbers. After that, you had to have a really deep understanding of the structure of the universe itself through astronomy. And only then, only after you've mastered all of that, could you be ready for what he called judicial astrology, the actual art of making judgments based on the stars. And this page from his book just shows you his whole approach in a nutshell. On the left, you've got this scientific diagram modeling the physical world, the elements. And on the right, you see that dense scholarly text. It just shows you how incredibly detailed he was. Everything had to be observed, documented, and understood systematically before he'd even think about drawing a conclusion. Okay, so you've climbed the ladder. You've done all the math and the science. What did it actually mean to practice judicial astrology? How did all this rigorous work translate into predicting things about a person's life and character?
Well, the first step, of course, was to catalog everything. I mean, just look at this table from the manuscript. Here's Al-Biruni meticulously listing out all the northern constellations. It's just like how a modern scientist would classify plants or animals. He was creating an ordered, predictable system that he could then interpret.
And from that organized system, he came up with these incredibly specific associations. Let's just take the planet Mars, for example. According to this book, Mars signifies brothers of middle age. Okay, its temperament, that's about quickness in business and an eagerness for conquest. And get this, look at the professions he linked to Mars: butcher, cook, smith, surgeon. You can almost see the logic, right? They're all jobs that involve sharp tools, or fire, or big transformations.
But it gets even crazier, almost like a modern criminal profile. A person influenced by Mars is described as being tall, with a large head but small eyes and ears. They'd have lank, reddish hair and long fingers. It is absolutely astounding to see this level of precise, physical detail being chalked up to the influence of a planet.
But this whole system wasn't just about figuring out individual people. It was a complete map of the cosmos. Think of it as a grand unified theory that connected your personal life, your culture, and even your location on Earth to the movements of the planets and stars.
For Al-Biruni and people of his time, where you lived was directly hardwired to the structure of the heavens. What you're seeing here are two different cultural maps of the world from the text, a Persian one and a Hindu one. Each of these regions was believed to be under the influence of specific planets or stars. So in this worldview, Your destiny wasn't just written in the stars above, it was written on the very map of the world you were standing on.
And this, right here, this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. Al-Biruni's methods were totally scientific, mathematical, observational, systematic. But his goals, well, those are what we would now call pseudoscience. To understand destiny, define a person's character, and predict the future. This ancient text lives right at that fascinating, blurry line between the two.
And looking at all this brings us to a final, pretty challenging question for ourselves. 1,000 years ago, this text was a primer of science. Today, we see it very, very differently. It kind of makes you wonder, where are our own blind spots? And how sure are we really about where we draw that line between science and belief today?